Oh, the counter's going. Must mean that it's working. Hey, Mike.
Computers always work perfectly every time,
Computers
and
always work.
networks.
Computers and networks always work, huh?
Yeah,
So, hey, this is not my usual background. Guess where I am?
in a
I'm in.
hotel room.
No, I'm
You're
not
not.
actually. I'm in a conference center that has an awesome Sticks poster behind me in Pocatello, Idaho.
That is so on brand. I can't believe it. That is
you
so appropriate.
so I'm here actually with the American Hospital Association,
Right.
and they're doing a tabletop exercise and talking to the health sector here. I'm not allowed. They're right now doing the tabletop. I'm not allowed to be there for that part, but I was there this morning, and just fascinating group of people and really great information from the FBI here and from the American Hospital Association. Work with a guy named John Ricci, who's at the AHA.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a great dude. But yeah, it was group just a group of small hospitals trying to avoid getting ransomware, and
Getting knocked
man,
over.
and they're doing a great job of it. They are resilient, they are smart, and it makes me so angry that criminals come after them.
Yep. I do know, and despite the application of public policy and things going on, it's not likely that this is going to stop anytime soon. Although I think it's going to dial down around the health sector, right? And there has been some reporting this week about how this rhetorical change that we've made is having an effect, and they're backing off. And apparently, there was one of these gangs that gave their pledge they wouldn't do this anymore, and hit our critical infrastructure. Okay,
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah, how was
Well,
travel?
we'll
I heard
see.
it was bumpy getting there, wasn't it?
Oh, we were a bit late, but not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was fine. But right before I left Seattle, we did this penetration test
All
live,
right.
this webinar, and man, it was great. We had 200 people on the call. We had a bunch of
Wow.
people view the video afterwards, up to 400 people. A bunch of people contacted us and said that they really want Jeremy to do a pen test. Really good stuff. And there's one organization that actually responded to us from the webinar and said, "Hey, based on the stuff you guys do and based on some of our own research, we've created a whole security roadmap, and it's a great roadmap. They've done a great job.
Oh,
If folks are interested in seeing that webinar from yesterday with the pen test, shoot me an email at jake@criticalinsight.com, and I'll send that to you."
all right. Yeah, so Jeremy, actually, this is a good story. So he is CI employee number one. He is the first W-2 employee. He's USMC, and boy, is he a good break-in artist. Sorry I couldn't attend that, but I think I'll watch the replay myself.
All right, so we should talk about security news because that's what people are here for.
That's right.
What happened this week?
Well, to start, the U.S. government is saying, and this goes right back to that public policy part I was talking about, will probably, likely, not prohibit ransomware payments. Okay, all right. I disagree. A threat intelligence firm did a study of dark market sales of persistent access to corporate and government networks, and they found that the average cost to buy access, right, a pre-compromised network where somebody's got a functioning backdoor, is about $1,000. If you want access to government agencies, that's closer to $100,000. But the point is, you can just buy access, and your fingerprints will never be on the original compromise. The active breaking in. So that makes it possible for governments, to use this to, keep the attribution away from them, but still do what they're going to do. As well as all kinds of other criming. Another study says that ransomware is off scale in the first half of 2021. We've already exceeded what we did in 2020. So new record.
Congrats.
Yeah, to us, yeah, gold medal. Ransom payments are going up. Smaller companies are being targeted. And attacks that are purely destructive and manipulate data, and that's a big deal, are increasing in frequency and severity. So this thing about, if I can touch your data, if I can encrypt it, I could have changed it, and that's always been a threat. And well, now it looks like the changing of the data is actually starting to happen. And for things like health records, that could be catastrophic for people. So.
Hey, back to the ransomware, whether the government will prohibit, payments and the fact that they didn't, one of their fears is that if they prohibit payments, then people will pay anyway, and then will be blackmailed for paying because they've done something illegal. So just something to think about. But hey, speaking of the health sector, what's that vulnerability that was just announced this week? It made me think of the HBO show about startups, Piper something, right?
I've never seen that, but the dumb name that someone gave it is Pwned Piper. So, setting aside the ridiculousness of how we name things in our business, it's actually pretty bad. It was discovered by our partners at Armis, and it has to do with pneumatic tube systems, which are a whole lot more important than I thought after I read this. I was like, wow, that are used to dispense all kinds of things. So, and this is operational technology, right? Like the stuff that's used to open water valves and dams and things like that, but on a much smaller scale. And there are about 3,000 hospitals in the U.S. that are potentially impacted by this. So if you're a hospital and you use, it's the TransLogic PTS system from Swisslog, you might want to Google up the mitigations that haven't been addressed yet by the company. They did release a firmware upgrade, but there's other things that are workarounds that you're going to have to deploy. So yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, and it's in fact we're going to do a webinar with Armis about these operational technologies in hospitals coming up September or something.
Cool. And yeah, one thing Armis does really well is make sure when they find a vulnerability that they work with the company.
That's right.
So that they can release updates before everybody knows about it. Because as far as anybody knows, nobody's used this vulnerability. Hey, the other thing I read this week is that Chinese campaign to compromise the telcos.
Yeah.
What's going on with that one?
Yeah. This is going to throw gas on the existing fire, starting as saber rattling and ending up as a fist fight. I think this is the biggest news of the week. Not so much that the allegedly Chinese actors focused on telecommunication companies, but the fact they've been using the Microsoft Hafnium exchange vulnerability since 2017. 2017. So now the administration is going to have to address this, and I think President Xi is not going to react well. All I'll say is we have to watch this. This is there's going to be a lot of diplomacy involved in how we address this. I mean, think about it. We just found out that we've been hacked for 4 years. What's been stolen in terms of intellectual property and national secrets? There's a hand slap coming at a minimum, and China is already saying they did nothing of the sort. So better strap in, because I think this is going to get animated.
But I don't get it. Like, why telcos? Why telcos?
Well, probably because access to a telco would give access to all the communication the telco moves, if done in the right way and you had the right, telemetry point. And this is probably more likely because it gave them the ability to shut down communication if they needed to. The communication sector is critical infrastructure for a reason. No communication means no emergency management, no public safety and law enforcement communication. It would really be a great way to mess up the country if that was your objective, more than it is now, I mean.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
How about some good news for a change? I mean, not everything this week is bad news.
Most of it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like great news that, with the infrastructure bill and everything and the back and forth about what's in and what's out and whether it's going to pass, it's $1 billion set aside for state and local cyber grants. that the Senate is going to work on. We'll see if it passes, but that's really positive. And the DHS grant program, it's $25 million, I think, for a response and recovery fund. And 7% of that must be used for IT security, right?
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what the response and recovery fund, how it's being distributed and for what reason, is if you've been crushed, maybe, I don't know, something like that. But what I'm glad they're doing is they're starting to say this much of this money has to be spent on this, because normally it doesn't go that way. How grants are used, it gives an opportunity to move the needle on securing infrastructure, that's critical to us on the scale we really live our lives, and that's local government, right? Not so much state government, but local government. So the interesting thing about this grant program, it's going to be administered by FEMA, which is normal. And the way that usually works is that local jurisdictions will have to do something called a THIRA. That's a threat and hazard identification and risk assessment. Okay, and I've done these. And results from those are used to prioritize where the money is spent. And usually it's the state that absorbs all that and works with FEMA to go, okay, here's how we're going to prioritize the spend. What's different this time is that CISA will also be in the loop for funds distribution. Usually it's just the state. Because of this difference, my assumption is there will be less starvation of jurisdictions that aren't major population centers, meaning the funds should be available to everyone, right? It's not just going to be the big high-risk terrorist target cities. It's every place where you make toilets flush and water drinkable, right? So that's good. I think that's good. That's my read.
And, when we were talking about earlier, weren't you saying that there are some nuances about how the grant funding can be used based on your experience?
So the rules at the time, and for the grant programs I was using, which were the Port Security Grant Program and the State Homeland Security Grant Program, were that you could use grant funding to address identified risks if you were using funds for capital purchases or consulting, but not employee salary or managed services. So you also can't use the funds to, and this is the word you have to use, supplant an existing solution, meaning using it to pay for something you're already doing. Okay. Those are the basic rules, which may be changed this time around. And here's why. So clearly it doesn't make sense to only allow local government to buy new gizmos, because it increases employee costs, right? Every time you buy something, it's got to be managed. And there's a 20% forever cost in operations and maintenance. You just, if you buy a Cisco thing, you're paying, 20% a year of that purchase price forever. So, and then consultants, their role generally is to assess and hand the customer the big steaming pile of things to fix. All right. This is true. You know it. Neither of those really addresses the underlying problem, which is the shortage of qualified practitioners that are available to act as the cyber fire department, right? Identify and put out the little ones before they get big.
Yeah.
To do that, you need to hire expensive people or to contract a managed service that becomes your reliable source of security expertise. Those are the way. So I think, if they think through this and they hear me, because I am reaching out to them, these things might start to pay for the things we really need.
So, thinking through that, what's the better way that would allow local governments to get better security solutions?
Well, again, getting FedGov to listen to me is hard, but if they did,
they should be watching this. I'm sure all of the federal government is watching this.
We should send this link to, I would suggest that they go ahead and they pay for, a time-bounded managed service contract, okay, like 2 or 3 years, with the stipulation that continuation funding or replacement of that with another solution is expected by the end of the contract. Okay. I think that's fair, right? We're going to pay to cover your back, 24/7 monitoring, and you have 2 years or 3 years to figure out how you're going to fund that yourself or come up with an alternative that meets requirements. Okay.
Yep.
So, and for smaller jurisdictions that just cannot come up with sustainment funds, and they're out there, I think that as States are looking at Pisces, right? Our project as part of an all-of-state cyber strategy, because the National Governors Association recommended people think about that. Their smaller jurisdictions could be monitored by university students like we do here. And then grant funding could pay for the operations and maintenance necessary there. So, I mean, there's ways to crack the nut here without just, well, here's money, buy as many firewalls as you want, or, whatever new great security snake oil is coming off the assembly line.
By the way, Mike mentioned Pisces. For those of you who don't know, Pisces is the Public Infrastructure Security Cyber Education System, which I had to look up because I didn't remember all what the acronym was. It's free monitoring for small governments in return for using data collected as real-time live fire curriculum, and it's now at 5 universities. If you didn't know. So anyway, pretty cool, right?
Soon even more universities, because Homeland Security is having us expand into 3 states. And so if you think every state would have, 3 to 5 universities bolted on to 20 cities they're monitoring, all of a sudden we've got 15 more universities throwing people off the assembly line that are qualified and have operational experience, right?
Yep. All right, Mike. It is Mountain Time, 2:47. I have to go. Give us something to smile about. What's a kicker?
Okay, so kicker this week does not come from cybersecurity, right? And you know that all my education and my previous life was earth science, right? So
you've told us many times.
I know.
I think we know that even more than you're a drummer.
Did you know this? Did you know that the Jet Propulsion Laboratory is looking for a CISO right now? So keep poking me, dude. Keep poking me.
Because you yeah. You did because you tweeted it. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to talk about a couple of things that are going on in energy, and I don't mean cybersecurity of the energy sector. One project that's in a proof of concept right now uses this array of mirrors to focus sunlight at a single point, right? So think about an acre of robotically controlled mirrors, right? And they move with the sun and they heat that single point where they're focusing all of this energy to more than 1,000 degrees. And then, this is the cool part, they can use that for the hydrolysis of water. Okay, what that means is you can take energy from sunlight, which isn't on all the time, right? And store it as hydrogen. That's cool. The other cool thing is that 8 years ago, and we're just finding this out because Caltech just made it public, a billionaire donated some millions of dollars for a space-based energy system that will transmit back down to Earth and be collected, by something down here for distribution. So in space, there's no atmosphere to dampen the effectiveness of solar collection, right? In space, there is no, unless you get around the backside of the Earth, there's no real night either.
Right.
So depending on how you position these things, they're always on. So both of those are really 2 cool things because technology is going to have to save our backsides, and soon. So energy systems that don't use carbon and can scale might be that technology, and that made me happy.
And now everybody knows what it's like when I say it's hard to keep Mike on topic.
Yeah. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
All right. Well, if anybody watching is in Pocatello, Idaho, shoot me an email, jake@criticalinsight.com. I'm leaving tomorrow. But yeah, let me know. And other than that, I'm going to go back down to this awesome conference. Mike, thanks for joining this LinkedIn Live. Everybody, sorry we were late, but time zones got us all screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's weird to be at a conference, but it's a hospital conference and everybody's vaccinated. So there.
What are 3D people like?
They're really.
You should say they're deep. That's the only right answer. They're deep.
Oh, well done. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I'm going to hang up on you now.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.